Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Joel, I hadn't really told the listeners, but I'll tell them now. I now have a virtual assistant who's helping me set up the shows and so forth, so I don't have to do that part, which I'm enjoying very much. But she also picked the topic today. And now she did pick it by going to your timeline, because that's our pattern, right? I go to the timeline and I find something there that's of interest. But this is one that she picked because it's of interest to her.
Nice.
And the topic she picked was responsibility is freedom, which is a very interesting concept. I didn't see the particular post this time, obviously, because I'm not the one who picked it. But do you remember that post? Do you remember sharing a post that had that message on it?
Maybe not that exact message, but responsibility. I can see the connection. Yes, I certainly do.
What connection do you see? I mean, when you hear that phrase?
Well, to me, most people, the freedom of responsibility means you're not reliant on anything. You get to a point where you're free to let me take care of this. Let me go. I'm very much a let's fix this, whatever it takes. There's freedom in that for me, from my perspective. I become dependent if I am not self-responsible. If I'm not responsible, then I become dependent on somebody else to do something. So when you don't claim responsibility in your life and you don't take action in your life, then you really have no freedom. Then you're at the whim of whatever happens. So by taking action, by being responsible, and I believe in the ultimate responsibility. At the end of the day, it's my world to deal with. It's my life. It's my thing that nobody's coming to save me. So I have to be the one that's going to implement that rescue if there needs to be a rescue. And I had to learn that the really hard way. But I became very responsible after being irresponsible for many years. And literally I was so irresponsible that I literally lost my freedom for a while. And that responsibility has given me freedom to do whatever I want to do at this point. So I have the connection. I love the connection.
Okay. And it makes sense. It also makes sense to me from the perspective of the root of the word responsibility, which is response, or to respond. And to respond means basically to say something back, to say, okay, here's how I'm going to react to something. So when I think about that word response or responsibility in this context, I think of it in terms of choice. Right?
Yes, I agree.
Because, I mean, if you're going to respond, you have to choose something that you're going to respond with. And the root of that freedom that I think you're talking about is the freedom to choose what your response is going to be.
And I will even get more nuanced, at least and I know there can be variations on this theme, so I'm not trying to just draw a line in the sand with this, but there's reacting and there's responding. Reacting is often just reacting without a thought of response. It's reacting usually negatively. Somebody says something, you fire back at them, and you get that responding is a well thought out response. You're responding to a situation other than reacting. Reacting is often emotional and just a trigger often after being triggered. Responsibility or responding is, I'm going to think this out. Let me take a deep breath. Let me delete the FU text I'm about to send and respond with, let's get productive in that. And I just feel that's the way I like to look at it. Just that it's nuanced in that respect.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. I think I probably would have grouped the two together just because I figured that anything is a response. But yeah, I like the way you defined it. I think that kind of makes some sense.
Yeah, and that's you're right. When you get into the definitions, you're right. But as far as when you point something out, my responses, I try to weigh them. I try to measure them. When I get into, I try not to be reactive to anything, because most of the reactions that I have are based on a startle response or an event or something, or out of anger. This guy made me angry, or this person made me angry. And so I will react and then often regret what I reacted with. When I always am pleased when I take time to respond, to calmly respond. What is the right answer here? And that always works for me.
I mentioned to you before we got started that there was something I wanted to share with you, and then I couldn't remember what it was. It had escaped me. Well, it came to me, and I realized that it actually ties into what we're talking about here. Because as we're recording this, Hurricane Milton is bearing down on Central Florida, specifically on where you grew up, on the area that surrounds Anna Maria Island. And there was a very interesting, as you point out in the past, that anytime that any kind of major storm like this occurs, the weather services and so forth, they go overboard because they're going to know they're going to sell lots of advertising, lots of eyeballs are going to be watching it, so they play that up. And you've mentioned how that can have an effect on your psyche, how it can affect your psychological outlook, your view on life, and so forth. Well, I saw a news report that also showed how it affects the psychology of the weather forecaster.
Yes.
There was actually a weather forecast where the meteorologist, as he was talking about Milton approaching the mainland, was tearing up because he was so concerned about the likely damage coming out of that hurricane, which is immediately following, within about 2-week period, another hurricane that came through a few weeks ago. And apparently not all the debris has been picked up. So there's this concern that all this debris is going to be flying around. He was tearing up. He was tearing up, and he had a hard time getting through his own broadcast.
Sure.
And all I could think of when I saw that was, boy, there's what Joel's talking about, rebounding on the person who's delivering the news.
Well, and now I will point out with this storm in particular, and I want to be very, make it very clear. This storm, the last report I saw was about 180 mile an hour winds.
Yeah, this is Category 5. This is major.
If there were a Category 6, this would be Category 6. It's that level. They don't have 6, but when you look at the spaces in between, this would be Category 6. So now it is going to wind shear, and it's going to probably hit the area at a Category 3.
Right.
The problem, as you're saying, if you look at the map, those that are looking at this, if you see that exactly where landfall is, that is where my place on Anna Maria is. Seriously, it's likely to change course, but that area is at the mouth of Tampa Bay. And we had a storm a few weeks ago that flooded the area. My home was damaged with probably $30,000 worth of damage on the ground floor, sand, and it just filled up. Lost the golf cart, that kind of thing. But that's secondary because that's what you expect, only a home near the beach. Now, the place isn't cleaned up. There are roads that were washed out that aren't going to be there. So this could be a catastrophic. It literally could be that level. It could cause more damage than any storm in the history of the United States. I'm just saying
absolutely.
that. Yeah, because I'm not trying to minimalize it when I'm saying this.
Yeah,
however,
and I'm glad you said that, because I wasn't trying to minimize it either.
I know you weren't.
I just saw that there was an interesting parallel going on.
Yeah, but you also see a reactive component with that. You'll see that the social media. One of the things that happened years ago that I find hilarious is I live in Central Virginia now, and right outside of Richmond in a county called Hanover County, and really good school system. Everything's we live this almost like idyllic life in this little county, and there was a storm, a tropical storm remnant that was moving toward us, and it was expected to hit on a Friday. So all the social media, everything was going crazy. So the school system on Tuesday said, we're going to shut down on Thursday and Friday just to be safe. Now, that storm totally fell apart.
Right.
Nothing happened. Bright, sunny days.
Yeah.
So they were influenced by their decision of this horrible storm, what it did before, and so a lot of times we overreact. When I was a kid, we would go Category 1 hurricane we didn't pay much attention to that. It just was different. You'd never left for that. But again, like you're saying, all the attention to it, in this case, it is probably warranted to make sure everybody needs to get out.
Sure.
Any of my friends that are listening down there, I hope they are getting out. Everybody I know has evacuated the island, which is good. And this is one of those things that there may not be an island when we're done, because this is a barrier island. They weren't intended to be built on. They're just barrier islands that we have just sort of like, oh, let's build on this. And but this could take it away. But you're right. When we just overly focus, it's out of our control what's going to happen.
Right.
And we hope everybody's safe. They heed the warning, but the responsibility here lies in what we can do, and that is get out of the storm, get out of the way, and then see whatever's going to happen in the storm. Our response will be there. There's no value in worrying and overblowing it and anticipating. I've seen these storms shear down to nothing, and a couple of years ago, this is the difference in which a storm. If you're on the south, if the storm goes north of you, that pushes all the water up, and there's a lot of flooding.
Mm.
A year or two ago, the same path that you're looking at right now was happening. I forget the name of the hurricane. It quickly went south, ended up in Fort Myers. So Tampa Bay ended up. I never seen this. It sucked all the water out of Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay was dry. It had a reverse effect.
Wow.
It sent all the water out. So our little island got nothing. In fact, everything just sort of cleaned out the canals, and it was empty, and eventually it all came back. So the difference in where this storm hits is going to make a difference in the response, obviously, or how we respond to it. But all of these things, when you're looking at it, like our topic or the law of attraction in general, responsibility also comes with the idea that your responsibility are those things you can control. And in this case with the storm, getting out of the way of the storm and then assessing afterwards is the only action that I think is reasonable, or really you could do. Worrying about it or saying, and everybody, their livelihood, I understand that. But the concept of what is actionable right now, and that is to follow what everybody's saying, get out of there, get safe, and then we evaluate. That's really all we can do, and hope that it does turn and hit a less populated area or hit it all. I don't know what that would be, but it makes a big difference. And like you're saying, the Weather Channel's ratings on a day like today is astronomical. It's just it's so much higher than some random Tuesday in November.
And my point wasn't that people shouldn't be paying attention when something like this happens. You should pay attention when something like this happens. But I have a cousin who lives in Tampa Bay. I have a brother who lives on the other side of the state near Cape Canaveral. I'm certain my cousin has evacuated. My brother's most likely evacuating too. It'll probably be Category 1 by the time it gets to him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he evacuates anyway. So that ties into directly what you're talking about. You just take steps that make sense. I mean, you don't need to freak out about it. You just take the steps that you need to do in order to protect yourself, in order to take care of yourself. The challenge, I think, here, and what this whole event kind of brings to light is kind of tied into what happened with the previous hurricane, which was Helene, I think it was. And Helene also has affected my family in that Helene went up into western North Carolina, where my sister lives. My sister lived right in the path of where that went through. And I heard from her for the first time yesterday, 11 days after the storm. They've been living without power all this time. I had heard from my niece that she had contacted my niece successfully, very briefly, shortly after the storm to say she was okay, but we hadn't heard anything since then. And they've been essentially living without food. They had thousands of dollars worth of food that was destroyed because they couldn't cook it. They couldn't do anything with it. They're basically living without food at the moment. I sent them some money because they were trying to raise some money to get a generator. So they're dealing with that kind of stuff. That's a pretty severe situation, and it's life-threatening too, because people have lost their lives in the aftermath of that, not just the storm itself. But here's the key thing. How are they responding? They could be responding the way that, say, the media is talking about, in terms of being in panic mode, in terms of I don't want to call it overreaction, but reacting to the point that is beyond the ability to take cognitive action. That's what I'm thinking about. I think about people who get so wrought about situations like this that they literally make themselves catatonic. They freeze themselves.
Well, that's even that gets to the point we were talking about earlier. When you're responding, you're doing it through a controlled central nervous system where you're logical and you have access to your brain. When you're in a reactive mode, you're in a fight or flight response, and you're limited in your thinking, and you don't always make the best choices. One of the things that it's funny, Uh, the subject matter is not funny, but the concept. I know I mentioned this on the show before, but when people panic, I was talking to this fireman one time, and he, he's been a fireman for a ridiculous number of years and has seen all these things, house fires. And he said one of the things that he's always been amazed about is people that have to flee their houses in the middle of the night. Obviously you get the kids out, pets out if you can, and you grab something along the way. He said he's seen people come out with a toaster.
Yeah.
The one lady came out with a broom. It's just it's not a ration. He's not making fun of them. He said, but just the brain can't process. So let's grab something.
Right.
And it isn't like you grabbed your wallet or your car keys or these other things that would make more sense, or your documents. You're grabbing a toaster. It's just, and you see that because that shows what happens when the brain's in a fight or flight response.
Right.
And so when you get, everything, if we could, life would be a lot easier if we would react, we weren't reactive to everything, and we're capable of responding, in a logical manner where we, in methodical. Let's get ahead of it. This storm is definitely going to hit Florida. So to me, the proper response, let's get out of the state while we can. Let's head north. Let's find a place that's definitely out of the path and stay there. Find friends. That's a response that makes sense. Let's turn off the power at the source. Let's get what we can, documents, whatever, and get on down the road and let's see what happens. That versus the last minute. Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. I'm just get stuck in traffic, and all those things can happen. But it's just the mindset that takes place when we're in a panic mode tends to lead to being a reactive mindset. And when you're in a calmer state is more of a responding mindset.
The thought that I have as you're describing that very well is that you described an incident where someone is fleeing a fire, or they're helping their family flee the fire, which is a very tight time frame. It's a very compact time frame. It happens over a course of 5, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, something like that. But it's a very compact time frame.
Right.
And there are going to be time frames like that associated with a major storm like this, maybe longer time frames, but they're going to be relatively compact compared to all of the angst that gets associated with it. So there's angst, compact, serious situation, angst. And we all focus on, when we're talking about these topics, we have a tendency to focus on that one really bad time, that compact time frame, when we lose touch with reality, so to speak. Like you were describing, you take the toaster because your brain just isn't functioning properly, but your brain is functioning up until the point where that event occurred, and it's functioning after that. And yet, this is where I'm zeroing in, and yet those periods outside of that compact time frame is where we give so much energy to giving up our control, to giving up our ability to respond. That's the part that absolutely fascinates me and concerns me, and it affects me in a lot of different ways, because I that's what I see with the newscaster. I understand why he felt emotional. I certainly grabbed and grasped that. But the part that also I ask myself is, I get why you're concerned about what's coming up. But isn't this the time when you're not in that compressed time frame? I mean, that storm isn't scheduled to hit for a couple of days. There's like a 48-hour period, or at least 24 hours, that you have time to do stuff.
Yes, and you're right. And in a similar thing, one of the things that the athletes that I work with, like basketball players in particular, they will describe, when the game that happens really fast, there's a lot going on. And one of the techniques that I try to work with is mentally slowing the game down.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're constantly in that reactive state, and you miss a shot, then you miss another shot, all your brain's thinking, I just missed 2 shots. And so where's our power of control? First of all, we try to slow the game down. That's important. Slow it down mentally. Let's take a deep breath. My shots aren't falling. So what other areas of the game can I maybe contribute? And there's rebounding, there's defense, there's shot blocking, there's you can dive on the floor and get it for, but you can really extend your effort in another way. And so what happens often is when they, and this is the technique we work on. I charge a lot of money for this information, by the way. So the technique that we work on is let's not freak out about the shots right now. Let's get assists by passing the ball. Let's get defense, and then once that happens, then your mind will go, I'm playing a really good game. I can slow it down. My shot will come back. If I just keep firing radically every time, I'm going to go 0 for 9, and I'm going to get benched.
Yeah, and what we're describing here, all the sports that I know of, all the team sports, use the same phrase to describe it. They call it doing the little things.
Yes.
Baseball, basketball, football, soccer, I don't care what sport, hockey, I don't care what sport you're talking about. Doing the little things means going above and beyond the basics of trying to score, putting the puck in the net or whatever, going beyond that and trying to do whatever little thing you can to contribute to the team effort. And the thing that plays out consistently time after time is that the team that wins it all, the champion team for whatever that league is at the end of their season, that's the team that went above and beyond continuously. They just every single play they were going after. Okay, I can't get the base hit right now, so I'm going to move the runner along. Okay, I can't score the touchdown right now, but I'm going to tackle that one guy at the 1 yard line. I can't put the ball in the basket right now, but by God, I'm going to do something on the half court. I mean, it's that kind of mentality that plays out over and over again with the teams that win.
It does, and there could be other areas of it, and where this sort of plays out is similar. The one case, one of my players is a tight end, very well known tight end. He plays, he's one of these people that just the most reliable 2 or 3 yard guy. If you need 3 yards, he takes 2 steps, takes a left. You can throw the ball. Yeah, you can throw it as hard as you want in his chest. He's going to catch it. That guy, and so during one of the games, he dislocated his shoulder, and he really his entire the right arm wouldn't move. It just so he couldn't contribute, obviously, or could he? Is what the coach said. So it was 4th down. The other team didn't know how bad he was injured, obviously.
Sure.
It was 4th down. So the coach goes to him and said, "Would you be willing to go into the game just to be a decoy?" Yeah. So he goes into the game, and this is a team player guy. So he comes in, he even runs a route. His arm couldn't move. Runs a route, pops in position like he's going to catch the ball. Well, now he has 2 people on him because they only needed 2 yards. There's a guy that's behind the defense. The quarterback hits him, runs in for a touchdown, and wins the game. Wow. So that's a way that my player contributed the best way he could, and he got the game ball in a sense. That the coach was like, if you didn't step up and go into the game for us, they would have definitely not had. But they needed 2 people on you because everybody in the stadium knew it was coming to you, but us. Mm-hmm. Yes, and that is stuff like that. So there's ways you can do that. And that applies to bigger areas of your life too. Just if this isn't going well, I knew a guy one time that he was recovering compulsive gambler, and really, I'm not saying this negative, a very odd guy. So, but I liked him, and years ago he wanted to volunteer for. This is way back when Bill Clinton was running for governor. Oh, yeah. Okay. In Arkansas. So he volunteered for the Clinton campaign, and they didn't really have much for him to do. He was this quirky guy, and they all just didn't really know how to handle it. So he became the go get us coffee guy. Okay. And so he cherished that role. He just cherished that role. So he just is unpaid position, go get coffee, go get this. So one day somebody says, "Hey, we need some little American flag pins." And so he finds out where you get the American flag pins, and he orders 1,000 of them. And everybody, oh my gosh, this guy becomes the guy that can get anything, So he's a pretty smart guy too. And he said, "I can get American flag pins from China, ironically, for about 8 cents a piece." He just paid about 80 cents a piece for them. So he started, as Clinton kept moving up, he stayed with the campaign. He eventually became the guy that we need posters. We need this. We started his own company, and he knew all where to get the best of everything. He became very wealthy, being that Democratic Party guy to go to, and it was a brilliant way to become valuable. And really, he had no tangible skill. And in the beginning, they were just sort of tolerating him, but he became a very valuable player to them. He passed away a few years ago, and James Carville actually was very good friends with him, mentioned him in his book. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah. So it was.
Did he call his company Gopher Incorporated? I mean, it seemed like it would be an appropriate name.
It would be a brilliant name. I don't think that was it, but it makes sense.
Well.
But that so there's opportunity. One of the things you got to realize is there's always opportunity. There's always, the idea that there's a way for everything. I had a Facebook war post the other day that I had to delete the post. I made the very controversial post that change is coming. You know how controversial that is.
Yeah, I could see that's going to piss a few people off.
Yeah, I did not intend it, but Lord apparently did. So one of my Facebook friends said, "Oh, it better come the last 4 years, this, that, and the other." And
I turned it political. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it turned it political very fast.
Yeah.
And so,
this time of year, that's going to happen a lot.
Yeah, and so, I was laughing because it's the most benign post in the world. But so anyway, I basically responded to the guy. I said, the last 4 years have been spectacular for me. The previous 4 years were spectacular for me, and in fact, going back to 1995, every cycle has been incredibly good for me because I've changed my life around. So it's my responsibility; it's not theirs. Well, then that set him off because he wanted to point out to me what. So ended up just saying, and then other people jumped in to defend me, which I don't need defending, and I said, okay, that's not the point of my page. But
right.
You're seeing that the narrative that he's helpless if one party wins. There's a belief that I plan on being successful. I made a statement when COVID hit and everything was shut down. I told you this on a podcast.
I do remember, yeah.
And I said, I don't know how, but I will find a benefit to this, and I will thrive in the middle of a pandemic. I did. It increased my business because while everybody was shutting down and going virtual, I just kept going all in the office every day and doing what I did, and that even increased my business even more to the point that I just couldn't even take any more clients. And that happened because that's going to be my intent. The conditions of the world I can't control, but my response to the conditions of the world are in my control. And that's where my responsibility lies, is to go in and work on that. That's, the idea that this is going to happen and the world's going to fall apart is part of that victim mindset on either side. And I'm not picking a side here. Both sides are doing the same thing.
Oh, they're very good at it. Yes. Yeah. And have been for a long time. This is not a new phenomenon.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that.
Yes.
Interesting you mentioned too the having such success going through the pandemic, because it reminded me of something. Because I didn't have a bad pandemic either in that sense. I had a fairly successful one. What was really interesting about it is if you looked at my financials year to year, it looked on paper like I had bad years. But during these so-called bad years, I did something I hadn't been able to do the previous 10 years successfully, which was to get out of debt. Yeah. I got out of debt in the middle of the pandemic in my lowest income year.
Wow.
So, which to this day, it boggles my mind. I do understand. I finally figured out how I did it, because at the time I didn't even know. Literally, I sat here on the program saying, I don't know how I did this. All I know is I attracted it somehow. Beyond that, I couldn't tell you. I did eventually figure it out. It was because we were in pandemic, we were in lockdown, so there was nowhere to spend money. So I had extra money to put aside that I wouldn't normally have. The money that was previously disposable was no longer disposable. Hey, pay off the debt. Why not?
Yeah.
But I didn't plan that. That's my point. Like you said, I always felt responsive throughout the whole thing, but I didn't plan to be out of debt during the pandemic. All I knew was I was going to be in responsive mode all the time, every single time. And I was always going to be responsible for whatever happened. If something happened, I did it to myself. I brought it on. I'm the one who did it. And I was willing to say so. I would say so here on the air. And that attitude is what created the scenario for me to be able to get out of debt in the middle of the pandemic. Because
I love that. Yeah.
flip it around. What if my attitude had not been that way? I guarantee I would have found a way to not pay off that debt. Guarantee.
Absolutely. And we in fact, I did something during the pandemic that I, looking back, and I'm still glad I did it this way, but when all that stimulus and business money, so my bank calls, I have a small bank I deal with here in the Richmond area. And the business banker I work with calls me and says, let's get your application in for this stimulus or whatever
Oh
it
yeah.
was. So you qualify for $150,000. There's a likelihood you won't ever have to pay it back. And I go, I don't need it. And he's like, no, everybody applied for it. Everybody's getting it. I said, I don't need it. No, thank you. And he was shocked. He said, it's $150,000. I said, look, if they want, I don't have any debt. I'm going to want to, if they want it back, I don't want to deal with the government. I'm fine. I'm going to make plenty of money anyway. So I didn't take it. I thrived, did fantastic. And then, of course, later I found out nobody had to pay that money back. Nobody had to pay the money back. And I'm like, I literally just left $150,000 on the table. And I don't care. It doesn't matter. It makes sense. It's like, it wasn't a bad move. It doesn't change my life. It doesn't mean anything. But yet, the idea that I think my mindset actually helped me thrive even more. I have an abundance. I don't need any government handouts. That's the way I looked at it, which isn't accurate, but that's my mindset. I have plenty. I don't need free money. I just want to go earn my money. And that was just how that worked out. And so again, I believe, and this goes back to our original discussion about the topic, that's the case where I viewed that as my responsibility. It was my responsibility to get through this. One of the things I decided years ago, I have no idea whether Social Security will be available when I retire. I don't care, because I feel it was my responsibility to go make enough money that it doesn't matter. That's my responsibility. Now, not everybody sees it that way. That's great. But that's just what I chose. That's how I choose to view it. And if it's there, great. If it's not there, I'm good. I'm going to be good either way. So, and that's where that freedom comes in, where your virtual assistant made that connection. In the freedom part is I have the freedom of being responsible. And once I am in control of these things. I'm not relying on the government to fund Social Security when I'm 70 to make sure that I get whatever my number is going to be a month. I don't need that. If it's there, great. If it's not, it's my responsibility to prepare for it to not be. That's how I view it for me.
Sure.
So there's freedom in that. There's freedom in not having to be reliant on the government. There's freedom in not having to be reliant on other things.
And the root of that freedom is the response part.
Yes.
It isn't even the responsibility part. It's the response part. It's here is me responding.
Yes. Yeah. I view any problem that I perceive, it's my responsibility to fix it by my responding to it.
So when you respond, it almost doesn't even matter what the response is, as long as it's in alignment with who you are as a human being.
Right.
That's the main criteria. And if that is the case, if it is in alignment with who you are as a human being, it's the right response for you. Even if it's not the same response as your next door neighbors, it's still the right response for you.
Oh, and I always, as you know, when I talk about this, if anybody's ever critical of me, which is obviously very concerning.
Yeah, that always just tears you apart, I can tell.
Yeah, but I'm always really clear. I'm talking about what worked for me. I am in no way critical of what works for other people. Whatever works is fine. I've just figured out a way to live life that works great for me. Right. And to be, I'm anything that I say is, if people say, well, I hear this a lot. Well, you just got lucky. You don't have to. I'm like, okay, I did get very lucky. I admit I got very lucky. A little bit of bad luck before the good luck, but still, nonetheless, I did get lucky. And but it's my attitude toward that keeps it going. My belief that, with all my heart, I'm going to be fine no matter what. I believe that, and my life goes that way. There's such a the evolution and sort of how I view all that. So part of that is my appropriate response, responding instead of reacting. I don't watch the news, most of the time. Sometimes you can't you're forced to see some news. But I because the news is it's irrelevant. My response is the same. You know, it's going to be the same. I got to respond for me, and whatever's going on in the news, all that can do is put doubt in my mind that what I'm doing is, everything's falling apart. This is happening. These wars overseas. That Joel, you need to wake up and face reality. I'm like, I am facing reality. It's my reality.
Yeah.
And and until I can fix the war overseas, it doesn't require a lot of my attention.
Facing reality. There's another one. It's interesting how that phrase gets used in conversations like this about personal responsibility, about freedom, that if you don't adopt a certain viewpoint, you're not facing reality. I find that to be fascinating, because the person who says that, no matter what reality it is that they're claiming that you should be facing, no matter what their viewpoint is, that person is saying that you are not facing reality unless you are seeing reality their way.
Yes.
Which is a really interesting thing. I don't think people realize that that's what they're doing. When they're saying you got to face reality, I don't think they've actually taken the step of saying, well, consciously, I'm the one who's insisting that somebody else has to think the way I do. They don't, but nevertheless, that's what they do.
They do, but and I will concede to one point, their reality is correct to them.
Yeah.
It's fact to them, but what they don't give me the ability to do is my reality to be correct for me. And that's what's lost. A lot of people say, I want you to do it my way or see it my way. And when I say I have, here's the facts of my life. And this is not arrogance, it's just fact. I have a career that I absolutely love. I'm good at it. I have no longer any financial worries whatsoever. I have people I love in my life. I have a really good, just a great group of people around me that I literally adore. And that's fantastic for me. I'm in incredible health. Still in the gym every single day doing the stuff that I do. And so I have this life that I could only dream of in my mind. I dreamed it into reality. And so I'm speaking to you as that is my reality. And whoever, but they want to argue, but what about this is my reality? And I don't know why that upsets so many people, because I won't see their reality. I acknowledge that they have their reality, but at the same time, I don't see it the same way they do.
Well, I think the reason it upsets people is that people have, particularly when they're in a fear-driven situation, they have the false belief that if everyone else thought the same way they did, then their problem would be solved.
Right.
And it turns out there's actually no basis for that at all.
No, there's not.
It's a fabrication that they've created in their minds. And what's even more interesting is that different people with different priorities can fabricate completely different solutions from each other, completely different scenarios about what everybody should be thinking about. But they all share that one thing in common. Everyone should think about things this way.
Yes.
If they would only do that, then my life would be better. And it's never true. So not only is it never true, it's never true over and over and over again in a wide range of scenarios. You would think we would notice at some point.
Well, but we won't, probably, because it's reinforced that if everybody believed the way we did, then the world would operate as we want it to do. It's first of all, you're not going to get everybody to believe that, and the other people are going to see it differently. Not everybody's going to have your same values or view everything the same way. Accepting other people's views and operating with, you have the right to live how you want. You have the right to do the things you want to do. I have a statement, not to be too controversial, but I have a really, if you're opposed to gay marriage, don't marry a gay person. You don't want an abortion, don't have an abortion. Don't want a gun, don't buy a gun. I'm pretty much that way. You don't like pot, don't smoke it. There's pretty much that mindset, and some of those statements will really trigger somebody. Now, ironically, there will be people in that statement, the 4 statements I made, I agree with 2 of those. You're right on 2, you're wrong on the other 2.
The one topic of conversation I had along this line that really stuck with me happened about, I'm going to say 4 years ago, something like that, here on the program, when David Strickle was on, and you've met David.
Yes.
And David was channeling the stream, and the stream came through with a statement that said something along the lines of, if everybody thought the same way, you'd all be dead.
Yeah.
And it sounded like a pretty stark comment, first of all, and it really caught my attention because of that. And then I started thinking about it, and I was going back and forth because I was the questioner that day. But I got to play the role of Jerry Hicks. I was the one who was asking all the questions of the stream, and we were going back and forth about this thing. The more I went back and forth with it, with the stream on this, the more I realized, wow, there not only is that true, because when you're thinking of a world where everybody has the same thought pattern, there's really nothing for anybody to do. So not only would people be dead, they'd want to be dead.
Well,
There would really be no purpose to being in the world at that point.
I agree, and also even further, and like for example, I know some incredibly talented people in so many different arenas. I know some of the smartest people in the entire planet. I mean, genius. I know doctors. I know neuroscientists. I know, nuclear physicists. I know that. I also know some of the most amazingly talented plumbers. I know some. Seriously, I mean,
I believe you. Yeah,
talented people. Carpenters. I know. I know people that have the ability to do stuff that I have no capable of repairing a car, stuff that I don't even remotely understand. So we are built, everybody that is born on this planet, in my mind, has a different mission, purpose, and personality and skill set. We're intentionally different on purpose. I mean, that is the strength. But yet there's a narrative that we must squash the differences and only acknowledge that together. It defeats the whole purpose. One of the most healthy creatures you ever will find is a mutt. Just a dog that's a little of this and a little of that. They're resilient. You get an English bulldog can cost $5,000. While they're beautiful animals, they are miserable. They've been inbred. Their breathing systems almost immediately need surgery. They have a lot of health problems. They have a very short life expectancy. You get some random ass scruffy dog that has unknown origins. They'll live for 15 years, and so there is strength and difference that we've been sold on the concept that the other side is trying to take stuff from you. The other side, and we all must think the same way. When in reality, if we could accept the strength of our differences is what propels us forward. You look at a football team. We used football a little earlier. The quarterback is a much different position than the offensive lineman. The kicker, weird as they are a very important factor, and they do stuff different. It requires diversity. I would not want Tom Brady, who is an incredibly talented quarterback. That's great. I don't need him rushing the passer to get a sack. He would not last one play. But you could say Tom Brady's the most valuable player at his position. I don't argue, but he's not going to be the most valuable offensive lineman. And so we all have that. The young people I work with, I talk to their strengths. I talk to, let's don't compare. The comparison is almost sort of that. It gets us back into the I have no action I can take in my life because this person is better looking, or this person's smarter, or this person's the other thing, versus what's right. I have a young lady that is doing really well right now, but she started with me. She was about 26. She's a pre-med student, and pre-med students are just literally tortured in school. They're just, it's really abusive.
It is.
And she was working 24 hours a day, doing clinicals, doing all these things. And she said, I'm looking at all these beautiful women my age. They're on Instagram and they're traveling the world. They look so thin. And she said, I'm not in good shape. And I go, you're working 20 hours a day. You're going to have one of the most coveted degrees that a person could have in the world. You can literally change the world. You can save lives, and you just don't get to participate with that right now. This idea that you're comparing yourself to somebody who's probably just showing you highlights that aren't exactly real or not normal, but yet you're doing something that few people do. Put down Instagram and focus on what you're doing. One of the things that saved her, she literally deleted all social media, went on, graduated. She's got a really, really good job at Emory as a teaching professor at college and the medical down there. Uh, very smart. She's also taking classes to, or whatever you call that, clinicals to do laser neurosurgery, which
Wow.
is just, phenomenal. And I laugh at her. So how's Instagram comparing now? And
Yeah.
it's like she's crushing it. She's amazing. But yet during that, we give up on. We look at everything. So the idea that we're all supposed to do the same thing. One of the worst things that's happening to the young people I work with is when they see Mr. Beast on Instagram or social media making $100 million a year, just going around doing fun things. Like, but I can't go to work for $15 an hour. And it's just a lot of that's going on. So a lot of it is getting stuck in that comparison loop as well, and not understanding the journey of all this. We all have that journey. And part of our journey is to repair what's broke. It is to be responsible for what we've done. I stood in front of a judge on on November 24th of 1995, and I pled guilty to a felony. And I told the judge, and she said, you don't have to plead guilty. We can have a trial. And I did it. And she said, you don't know if I want to sentence you to 5 years or not. I don't. But it's time for me to stop this, be responsible. If I feel I need to be in prison for 5 years, let's do that. And I'll get out and I'll get busy, or you'll do what you do and I'll get busy then. And she gave me 30 days in jail, and it worked. So yeah,
well, actually, it worked before she even put you in jail. You had already made that.
I was already there, but she picked up on that, and I broke that. All that stuff was my fault. I took responsibility. I became free with responsibility. I had to quit blaming other. Yes, I had a gambling addiction. I still did the stuff I did. I didn't mention that to her. I said, the idea that I have a gambling addiction is not relevant in my mind. I did what I did, and I'm waiting it's now time for me to fix this. That's what I took responsibility. I grew up, and that was the beginning of everything I have today.
Well, what we were talking about a moment ago when we talked about the diversity of different people, different ideas, different life patterns, and so forth, I wanted to hone in on that just a little bit more, because I think there's a very important piece to the whole responsibility idea where that's concerned. It's a responsibility to appreciate that which you are not.
Yes.
I think that's vitally important.
Yes.
It's why we talked about this whole idea that people should think the same way, that somehow that's a good idea. And I would submit exactly the opposite, that it's actually harmful to your own ability to accept responsibility.
Yes.
Because if everyone thinks the same way, if you think the same way as everybody else, what do you have to respond to?
Well, nothing. That's the point. You want the contrast. I love to debate people. I love to think differently. I clearly don't think like everyone else. I don't. I'm all over the place on many different issues. I don't even have a real defining definition of who I am politically. I believe in all different kind of things, but that is built on years of experience. I tell people who are telling me whatever their story is about politics and how I should be voting, I go, but you didn't live through what I lived through. So you don't know my point of reference. You don't know what matters to me. You don't know what I find, so the idea that we all grew up, the person that is born in Midtown Manhattan to a wealthy family that has a nanny, and a person that was born in inner city Detroit in public housing, and some dude that's in Birmingham, Alabama on a farm, have three entirely different lives. And it would be impossible for those three people to view the world the same way.
Right. And it would be not serving themselves
to
view the world the same way.
Yes.
But it would serve them to appreciate how the other person's.
But that is that once we, and that's where we get into one of the main components of the law of attraction, the law of allowing. When we allow others to be themselves, when we allow others, we without controlling, without judgment, you don't know what one of the things that I found, and I don't want to end on this one, but I'll do this real quick. One of the most annoying people I ever thought existed was Justin Bieber.
Okay.
Just really annoying kid. And then I find out that there's a lot of stuff that happened to him allegedly. Probably was really abused horribly by some famous people. And And I feel so sorry for that kid right now. I
Mm,
really do. He's a young man. He's a new father, and I had to, like, okay, all my information was built on a persona without knowing anything about him. And I feel bad
mm,
about that because what he went through, what he likely went through, is horrifying, horrifying. And it changed him. And I don't think he'll ever recover from it. And I was sort of mad at myself because I just went with that original thought. He had an experience that nobody should have. And it's something that you see those things. So once you have an empathy where people have been, an understanding, I will allow people to be what, because you don't know what shaped them. You have no
mm.
idea what shaped them. You don't know how they're responding. And if you want to do it the way I want to do it, then you're welcome to. But I also allow you to do it the way you want to do it. We're not always going to see it. You and I probably agree on 90% of the things. We don't agree on everything.
No, I think we'd be bored if we did.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to think that my dearest friends, we'll have debates, we'll have different concepts, and I'd love to discuss things, but at the end of the day, I understand we're going to
Mhm.
be in different shoes. I work with a couple billionaire families. They have I just can't comprehend their lifestyle.
Right.
I know what we're dealing with,
Yeah.
but I have no point of reference. What just I have
Well, the only point of
$1 billion
reference
in
you
that.
do have is what they're telling you because they're in session with you. So that's what you get as your point of reference.
Exactly, and that's the point. When somebody tells me this is what's going on with me, it might seem silly to me,
Mm,
but at the end of the day, that's their reality. It's okay.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
and when you master the art of allowing, you open up your own law of attraction connection better because you're not so
Mm,
focused on what you're wanting everyone else to do.
yeah. Yeah. There's also tremendous personal growth involved in that kind
Yes.
of appreciation too. That's to me, that's been the greatest gift that doing this podcast has done.
Yeah.
Because not only have I been privileged to have so many great conversations with you and with Anne Marie and with Jody Lynn and with Cindy when she was here and all the others who have been co-hosts over the years, but I've met hundreds of guests who have had their perspectives, their different points of view. And it took me a while. I can't say that I grasped this early on. It took me a while. But after a while, I began to realize, my God, I am so fortunate to have all these different points of view. I have more points of view that I've had the opportunity to explore through these conversations than most people get in a lifetime.
Yes.
And I don't even know how I can quantify how valuable that is. I don't
Yeah.
know if there's any way that I can calculate that, but I can tell at the depths of my soul, this is big.
Yeah.
This is really big having that experience. And has it widened my ability to appreciate others? Yeah. It's widened my ability to make changes within myself. When I see people who have such different viewpoints from me, who I don't always agree with, like you were saying, I mean, very often actually I disagree with them,
Yeah.
but they give me ideas that I had never thought about before, and I incorporate them into myself, and I end up changing my ability to change myself just through that.
Yeah. And
That's
that's
powerful.
it is powerful, and that we all are here, and we're all here for about 78 to 85 years, somewhere in that general range. And the idea that we're going to focus on the differences and who's wrong and all that versus there's commonalities. I like to know how everybody else thinks. I don't there's a lot of people I don't agree with,
Mm,
but I'm more interested in how they got there,
yeah, me
what
too.
led to that. When the idea of me and the people I deal with. I just am fascinated with all these people I know and meet. And I meet tons of them, as you know.
Oh yes.
And it's just everybody comes with a different perspective. Everybody has a different thing, and you get to know them. One of the things that I find a lot. That's why I like talking to kids sometimes, like
Mm,
the like
mm,
10-year-olds,
they're
because
great.
they just have it's just all there. There's no preconceived, I need to filter this. They'll lay it all out there. Their
Right.
perspective is all over the place. And sooner or later they're going to keep hearing you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. And then they're going to adjust their perspective to match the narrative. But I just love hearing the raw, I mean, just they'll say anything. They have no filter. And I love that.
Mm. Yeah, it's powerful. It's amazing. It's
Yeah.
fun too because it reminds you of what that was like. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
like we've forgotten what that is. Well,
Oh
in some
no.
sense we kind of have, but in reality, once we have the reminder in front of us, we can instantly react. Say, oh yeah, I remember what that felt like. I
What,
remember
what,
that feeling.
oh, I had a 10-year-old in my office with his mom one day, and mom was the client. 10-year-old was just there, say hi. He knew me, and so we were in the wrap up parts. He was sitting in the lobby, came in, we were just talking, and I asked him how school was going. Good, and so his mom said, "Oh man, I've been really trying to lose this last 15 pounds. I just haven't been able to do it. I don't know why." And he goes, "Do you think it's all that junk you eat all night?" And he wasn't being a smart ass.
He's just being honest.
He really and she started laughing. She goes, "Yeah, probably." He goes, "Okay, well, I didn't know if you didn't remember because you eat like a whole thing of ice cream every night. That might be it." So so I thought that was so, but that's what I love about the 10-year-old. I was at my neighbors, the family that I'm so close to. We're at the 7-year-old's birthday party at this fun land, I think they call it.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a quick story. So we get there, and the bracelets are the electronics are down.
Oh,
So
okay.
we can't pay for the bracelets. So there was 5 of us, and we were doing all the rides and everything. Well, happens to be her mom really wasn't riding anything. So
Mm.
when it came time, they said, "Oh, you got to go buy your bracelets now." It was open. Well, she hasn't done anything, so we didn't buy the bracelet, right?
Mm.
That's not ripping them off. She hadn't done any of the events, so
Yeah.
I didn't feel bad. So we just bought 4 of them. But we decided we wanted to play laser tag, and uh, that required something. And so we go in, and I'm like, well, maybe some of these people don't catch us. Let's just see what happens. So we
Mm.
go in there, and they're like, oh, I don't know what happened. There was a thing, and so the little girl goes, "No, you told them you didn't want." And I'm like, okay, okay, you're right. Yeah, and I mean, it wasn't any. She was right.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, it's good. But my point is, when all of this stuff that is happening, when you realize most of what we're worrying about is stuff, number one, that's out of our control, but
Mm.
also we get stuck in our version of reality. Allowing other people's reality to exist and not letting it affect you, it doesn't affect me. And now, if it does affect me, I have a right to say so.
Sure.
And I have a right to do that. Your reality, you can't do everything you want to do. I'm not saying that, but stuff that's not affected by other people, your reality, whatever you want to live, find your group of people, live the way you want to live. It's none of my concern. It doesn't change anything. But
And
yet,
at the end of the day, let's be perfectly honest. At the end of the day, this is maybe where we need the 10-year-old to come in to make the point. But at the end of the day, how many things are there actually that you have to be able to disagree with?
yeah.
I mean, there aren't that many. It's
Well,
not like, unless your orientation, this is going to be true for a lot of people, unless your orientation is that you always have to be in conflict, you always have to find what's wrong, you always have to hammer against something. Well, yeah, then you're going to run into it a lot. You're going to find a lot of things that you have to disagree with. But the takeaway for me is you put yourself in that spot. You're the
absolutely.
one who adopted that viewpoint. You're the one who said, everyone has to agree with me. You're the one who made it, not them.
Yep. And that's the point. That's the whole point. It is you see that. And the reality is, what affects me, what really affects me, your opinion, your belief, it doesn't. It's okay. I
Yeah.
can sit by you, and you can tell me, I have a sort of a rule, as you know, I'm a strong advocate for kids.
Mm.
You don't get to mess with kids and be in my orbit. That ain't going to take place.
Yeah,
But
sure.
that's just, there's a line in the sand on that one. But the rest of the stuff, I mean, why do I care? It doesn't matter. But yet there's a belief that if everybody, if they would just listen to what
Just listen. Yes.
if they would just listen, they would believe me, and then this world's going to be a lot better place. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way.
I saw a rare thing on Facebook, and that I looked at it. That's what made it rare. I don't look much at Facebook anymore, but I saw a rare thing on Facebook today. It was a meme that listed all of the characteristics of a cult.
Yes.
And the first character, I don't even remember what they all were, but the first characteristic listed was that the leader is always right.
Yes.
That you could never disagree with the leader.
Right.
And as soon as I saw that, I thought to myself, well, first of all, that's why I'll never be in a cult. Second of all, that's exactly how you end up losing responsibility.
Yep.
That's it right there.
Right.
Because if no one can ever disagree with you, if no one can ever disagree with your leader or with you, either way, it doesn't make any difference.
Right.
You've just given up responsibility.
Right. And that's, that's it. The ability to, all of us, I will never, like you said, I can never be the leader of a cult because I am frequently wrong. And I have no problem. In fact, I value pushback. I value being challenged. Anything that I've never been offended by it. People want to talk. I love to debate. There's a difference between debating and arguing. And I love a good debate where we can make points. We can do that and discuss it. That's invigorating to me. I don't argue. Arguing is an anger-based thing, and you're never going to win. Debates are but not everybody can debate. You have to. I figure
well
that out.
For that reason, because people. Let's be honest. People carry lots of anger.
Yeah.
And if you carry enough anger, you're not going to be able to debate.
Yeah.
It's just going to get in the way.
Right. Right. So the other day that this happens to me. I don't know why this one topic comes back to haunt me at the grocery store frequently. As you know, when I get off the call today, I'm going to buy eggs at the egg store. Right?
Yeah, that's like our running story around here. Yes.
So one time there's a lady there was there, and she said, "You can't buy that many eggs." I looked. I said, "What?" She goes, "That's absurd. You don't need that many eggs." I go, "Yeah, I do." And she goes, "What are they for?" And I'm just baffled. I go, "Well, of course now, you know me, my personality. I'm like, well, sometimes I just throw them away. Sometimes I, eat some. I just made up these,
just messing with her head.
Yeah. And she said, "That's why there's an egg shortage. There's an egg shortage because people like you. You're just wasting eggs." And I'm like, I said, "Well, I do enjoy wasting eggs, and it's sort of my hobby." And I just walked off. It's like, but she felt she had the authority to tell me I couldn't buy, 5 dozen eggs.
Yeah. That's funny.
She thought I owed her an explanation of where it's going to go, and she's like, "This is absurd that you're buying this." It was really. She went home angry that I bought 5 dozen eggs.
Yeah. See, all you had to do was tell her that I'm allergic to eggs, so you were buying mine.
Okay. That's
all you had to do.
Yeah.
Well, as usual, we had a lot of fun addressing a great topic. Responsibility certainly is freedom. Freedom and responsibility really are inseparable. And I am very grateful that I have you to talk about it, to help, kind of thread that stuff out, to kind of piece out and pull out the little bits and pieces of it. That makes it fun.
That's fantastic. Always a good show. Great to see you, my friend.
Great to see you too. Thank you very much to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.